Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm glad you made it this far. And in today's video, I would like to stop on one of the enrollment steps I told in the previous one in more detail and explain it to you even further. That's the preparation for the BBE Entrance Exam, as you could have guessed it already. That part was the most stressful and time-consuming for me, so let me give a brief introduction of what to expect. The exam will consist of 3 parts: English, economic and math, and all the questions will be multiple choice. That means that you will have a question, be it math, economics or English, and you'll have approximately 5 statements, and from 1 to 5 to all 5 statements could be correct, and you will have to tick the box which you think is the correct answer. And the word multiple choice kind of makes it sound like it's easy, you can guess, you can get lucky, but in most cases it won't be true, because some of the questions will be quite tricky and will require you to actually know stuff and know what you're reading. They'll have little details change in like 2-3 statements. Like usually 1 or 2 statements will be completely nonsense and you could easily rule them out, but the 3 which are left will be tricky and confusing and will require you to be confident in your knowledge to solve them. Let's start from the easy parts first. We'll go from economics to English to math. Economics. You will just have to read the book they provide on their website in the section of the entrance exam for the BBE program. It's quite easy and actually fun, entertaining to read, because there is a story and they go through the story step by step and they solve each question the people in the book, the characters, are facing, and you will understand how is that knowledge, is that theoretical knowledge, applied in real life. The content of the exam won't go outside that book. They will ask you some key terms, some key numbers, for example, how much do you need to set up an Nigerian GmbH, or how does the supply curve shift if this happens, so what happens to the demand, and basic mechanisms and how they work, why they change like that, and what influences them. That will be required from you. It's not as hard as you might think, because that book took me like couple of days to read, and I suggest you go through it 2 or 3 times, make some key notes if you need them, and if you don't have prior knowledge about economics whatsoever. Because for me, I have read various books about economics, always got that stuff intuitively with no real effort, and it was just a breeze for me to read. But every one of us is individual, and we all have different level of knowledge in different topics, English, math and economics, so it's not a recipe for all of you. So please adjust it to what you know right now and what you will know before taking the entrance exam. So now that we have gotten economics out of the way, just the book, nothing else, don't worry, don't panic. They might ask you if you have understood, like, they're not gonna just ask you some questions which you can answer if you have just learned everything by heart. That's not what they're looking for. They will ask such questions which will test, have you really understood the concept and how and what influences each thing or mechanism and so on. For the English part, I underestimated it, so with my 8.5 out of 9 on the IELTS, C1 proven, I struggled with it so hard. I have no idea why. Maybe it was time pressure, stress, and just being in a huge room with approximately 1,000 other people and being very nervous. But those sects will be somehow related to business and economics. They will be not short. They will have a little bit of complex vocabulary. And what they're looking for from you and what they will test is, can you understand what you have just read, and can you answer the questions about what you have just read correctly? Because when you will study, you will have to read a lot of articles, presentations, watch a lot of videos, lectures, and the main idea of learning and reading those articles will be to understand them and to be able to ask and answer questions on certain topics. So that's very logical that they test it. And the level of English, I think, is higher than a 6 out of 9 IELTS, which is the minimum score you need to apply to BBE. But that's logical because you will have to communicate with your lecturers and friends, do group work, watch lectures, take notes, all in English. So I think it's very clever of them to set the English part a little bit more difficult and more challenging than just basic knowledge of English. Now let's move on to the third and the most difficult part for most of the students is math. For me, the main difficulty is that we have 11 grades here and not 13, like most European countries do. So the theory for some of the topics was hidden in the first year university books, which I didn't have access to at the time and didn't have the time to read. And it made it quite stressful for me because I was so frustrated and I couldn't solve simple tasks. But after half a year of preparation, watching math videos, reading the book they provide, also really helpful, especially if you're struggling with some terms, for example, from switching from Russian to English or from German to English. And after that, I have collected everything in like one notebook and most of the formulas in one document I had. And with those notes, I actually managed to solve 99% of the questions. And finally, before the entrance exam, I was feeling quite confident in my knowledge, which was a feeling which was earned with stress and tears and sweat for half a year. And I had two tutors who unfortunately had no idea about the program of European and Austrian schools in particular. And they also had not that good English knowledge. So even though they did help me a lot, I had to look up most of the stuff by myself in English, on English websites, math websites, videos and so on. But once I got through that, got accepted, and a year later, all that hard work paid off because, well, I started as an English teacher, preparing students for interviews, their IELTS, and some people actually texted me asking me if I could prepare them for the BBE Entrance Exam and especially the math part, which was the part they struggled with. So I agreed, and after tutoring, which I used for teaching and showed them the basic solutions to typical questions, how to do this, showed them where to apply each formula, and that was really nice. And once they have sent me their pictures of standing on campus or in Vienna or getting the letter of acceptance, which was a nice feeling for me because I gave them something I was looking for and could not find anywhere at my time when I was in your shoes. It was a very, very pleasant feeling. And I will tell you more about that in the next video. So the math part, it will consist of approximately 10 to 16, 20 questions on average. And they will all be matura-like style. So the tests they provide on the website, the English translation of those tests, is what will come up in the exam, and sometimes those questions are literally copy-pasted from those tests with some numbers changed up. That happened to me and to others. But yes, so you should understand that that's the level of math you have to know, and if you can solve them with no problem, you're ready. So just practice part 1 questions questions 1 to 24 of the matura. Solve them, write down the main formulas you have used, and just practice them over and over again. One mistake I did is to look at part 2 of those questions, which is much harder and much longer than the part 1 questions, because I didn't know that there are going to be only part 1 questions. Nobody told me that before. I texted one person from BBE, so that was fun. And let's now move on to the general problems people have when taking and before taking the entrance exam. So when you're sitting there, and unfortunately this year the exam will be held online again on the 6th of July, but when you're sitting in front of a computer, you know that your life kind of depends on the next following couple of hours. It's quite stressful. But that stress usually comes from poor preparation, and when you know you did not do enough before that day. You know you should have read the book one more time, you know you should have solved more questions, and that feeling is probably one of the worst feelings. So try your best to really plan your preparation in advance to not be screwed up on the test day. The next problem people have is time management, because some of the questions will be tricky and they will require extra time and extra thought. They might eat up your time and won't allow you to move on to the next parts, which could you have easily solved. So my number one advice would be is to solve the questions you can first. And if you're really stuck on a question, like really stuck, and you're struggling with it so much, then you should probably move on to the next question and solve whatever you can to get those points. And taking an exam is like a roller coaster. So when you ride the roller coaster for the first time, you don't know what to expect, you're nervous, you're scared. But when you ride it for the 10th time, you're just chilling there, sitting maybe on the first row, on the first seat, and looking down when you like climb up and go down. And you don't feel scared anymore, and you know what to expect, and you feel confident in yourself. The same thing applies to the exam. So when you have solved a lot of questions, a lot of matura tests, when you have solved a lot of IELTS reading tests or TOEFL, when you have read the economics book 4 times, took some notes, understand everything, you won't be as scared as someone who didn't prepare at all. Well, everything again depends on the people and on your knowledge, because some people maybe have just studied economics and math all their life and they're much older than you, and for them it's super easy, but again depends on each person individually. So yeah, and that's all my tips and advice I could give you now. Stay tuned for the next video, which will be about the math part in particular, and can't wait to see you. So subscribe, like, and if you have any questions, please DM me on my working Instagram, which will be mentioned below. Bye bye.